Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. My guest on One of a Kind is Dr. Jean Robillard, the Vice President of Medical Affairs at the University of Iowa. Dr. Robillard is charged with integrating planning and operations for UI Healthcare, which comprises the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics, the Carver College of Medicine, and the University of Iowa Physicians, the state's largest multi-specialty physician group practice. He first arrived in Iowa City in 1973 for a pediatric nephrology fellowship. Following the fellowship, he moved from assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics, associate professor, the director of nephrology division, professor, and then vice chair of the pediatrics department. Leaving in 1996 for Ann Arbor, he chaired the Department of Pediatrics and was the physician-in-chief at the C.S. Motts Children's Hospital at Michigan. The University of Iowa recruited him, and in 2002, he became the Dean of the College of Medicine. And then in 2007, he was named Vice President of Medical Affairs. Dr. Robillard's honors and awards are many, and I will mention only a few. He's the former president of the American Society of Pediatric Nephrology. He's a fellow in the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Distinguished Alumnus Award for Achievement at the University of Iowa, Founders Award, the Midwest Society of Pediatric Research, and chair of the American Board of Pediatrics. He has published more than 222 scientific papers during his career, many of which contributed to advances in the field. Dr. Robillard was born in Montreal, Quebec, to a French-Canadian family. He received both his BA and MD from the University of Montreal. He and his wife, Renee, have 3 children, Marie-Josée, Martin, and Carolyn, and they have 8 very active grandchildren. Welcome to One of a Kind.
Thank you.
Your story begins, I know, in 1943 when you were born, and you had some amazing parents who expected and encouraged you and your siblings to study, and none of you disappointed them. Tell me about your first family and their influence on you.
I think we were 5 children. Both my mom and dad were born in Montreal as well, and my dad was a physician, but he did not practice much. He went really at the university where he became the director of the Department of Physiology and eventually became the dean at the end of his career. And then really his career had to do more with science and education than with the practice of medicine per se. At home, the expectation, I assume, was that we did well at school. I think it was part of life, and there was nothing really special about it other than we had to study and we had to have good grades and so on, probably like many other families in that respect. Because we were many children, I think there's always some competition between peers, and we had that like everywhere else.
So anybody else of your siblings go into medicine?
No, I'm the only one who went in medicine. I think my older brother was a mathematician, and he became professor at the university in his when he was in his 20s. I have another brother who was involved in human relation and HR. I have a sister who is a psychologist, and I have a younger brother who is an economist.
And I know you also had 2 sets of grandparents who influenced you. Tell me about them.
Well, on my mother's side, the grandparents came from Belgium, and he was a person who had a business selling flowers and so on and so forth. On my father's side, my grandfather really was raised on a farm. I don't think he farmed, however. I think he was more involved in selling butter and milk and these type of thing. And he realized rapidly that if he wanted his children to have good education, that they will have to come to Montreal. Then they moved to Montreal, and he bought few little businesses. He opened a grocery store, and so on. Then he was really, at the time, a small entrepreneur in many respects, and a very interesting person, challenging, a lot of humor, and so on and so forth. And we all remember him as a great person. And probably as a young kid, he had quite a bit of influence on me by his demeanor, by the way that he saw the world. He was optimistic to the extreme, and so on and so forth. And my grandmother on my father's side was really the one who was really setting up the expectation, and so on and so forth, and probably kept my grandfather in line.
And both your grandfather and your mother gave you that gift of optimism. Is that right?
I don't know where it come from, but I enjoy it.
And you are optimistic, I know. We will talk more about that. Many viewers might not know that when you were about 7 years old, you contracted polio, and this was before the polio vaccine was available. Yeah. What do you remember about that time? And you spent time in the hospital, and besides physically being changed.
It's interesting when you're sick as a kid. Maybe it's not true for every single disease, but at the time, I was in the hospital for about 6 months, really doing nothing. There was nothing to do, and they do a little bit physical therapy, but I still don't understand why they kept you in the hospital for so long. It was quite stressful on my parents, and I could realize that and feel that when they were coming to see me every day.
Right.
But for me, it was just normal life. I mean, it became part of life. And then left the hospital, came back home. At the time, I was in a wheelchair and I had braces. And for whatever the reason, the next summer came, and we went to the lake, and swimming with braces doesn't work, you sink. Then we took them off, never put them back. And that's really, I was very lucky in many respects. And I think I had parents also who didn't try to protect me and all this, and they let me do about everything I want. That's what later on I was able to ski, to skate, and all this. But not good, but enough to have fun.
Did any of your siblings contract polio, or was it only you?
It's
just
only
you.
Me.
You were fortunate, I did read, that you got to go to a private school. Did you have a teacher, and very challenging teachers? Did you have any one teacher that stands out who?
This is interesting. I think in life you have, depending of where you are in your development, probably different mentors that influence you. Yes, I think in school, and both in high school and college, I had people who really influenced me positively by their attention they gave to you, by the fact that they were demanding on. But demanding in a sense that you can do better and you can achieve even things that you couldn't expect you can achieve. And these people really have great influence on what you do later.
So was there one teacher at that time?
There were multiple teachers.
There were multiple
teachers.
Private
there were
school.
some in biology, some in math, and so on and so forth. There were multiple teachers. And when I think this back, it was not just one person. There were multiple ones.
Same with in your medical training. Was there a mentor that stands out to you?
Well, medical training really, there were some. As a medical student, spent summer in the lab of Andre Jasper, who was a neurophysiologist. That influenced me quite a bit to go in science, and especially spending 2 summers doing science was really enough to tell me I like that. I like the question, and I like also the excitement of making discovery, even as small as they could be. And I think I followed that the rest of my life. When I left Montreal, after middle of my residency, then finished the residency in Montreal, then went to UCLA, then I think Fred Smith, I went to work with at UCLA. Fred was the beginning of pediatric nephrology, was doing some work on the fetal kidney, the developmental kidney, had tremendous influence on me, tremendous in many respects. First of all, I think he was a special human being. He was a person that was optimistic in life, was caring, and had tremendous knowledge about pediatrics in general. And when he came here to be chair of the Department of Pediatrics, I did everything to stay at UCLA. I had people who wanted me to stay there and so on, but finally Fred convinced me to come. And I came here really because of Fred. And we came for 1 year, and we're still here.
Well, you left for a while.
We left and came back.
Did you think you would come back once you left to go to Ann Arbor?
When we left in '96, and we never thought we would come back. First of all, the kids were on both coasts, and we thought the excitement of going to Ann Arbor, and it was really a new career for me.
Sure.
We never thought of coming back. And,
but somebody, who was president? Was it Scorton?
At the time, it's interesting. Mary Sue Coleman had just left
to go to Ann
Michigan,
Arbor, right?
To go to Michigan in 2002. Yes, 2002. And then Frank Abood called me and said, "We're looking for a dean." I said, "That's good, so I can give you a few names." And I thought he was calling for that. And he said, no, I want you to come and visit and at least be interviewed. I said, "Frank," I said, "you have great people. I really, I'm young in my job," and so on. I said, "No, you cannot do that to your friend. You have at least to come for the interview." And came for the interview and came back for the second interview, and they offered me the position. And really didn't take long to make the decision.
And you're here. We're very glad you are. I read in the research that you stated in a newspaper article that your community is the state of Iowa. Would you talk about this? Because how much it contributes, what is it, over $3.4 billion to the economy? And
the budget of UI Healthcare is about $1.8 billion. That's the budget that we have at the beginning of the year. It includes the practice plan, the College of Medicine, and the hospital. The economic impact on the state is about $4.5 billion, which means what people pay in tax, what research grant we get from outside, and what businesses that exist because we here, and so on. Then it's a large corporation in many respects. But this hospital, this university, this UI Healthcare belong to the people of Iowa. And that's what I try to make sure that people realize that. And we're working for the people of Iowa. And the people of Iowa deserve the best. And in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, in terms of workforce, and so on. And this is our function. Then we, in that respect, different than a private institution, a private hospital, and so on and so forth. Then when the state called and asking us, can you take care of indigent patients, like they did about 6 years ago when Iowa Care was formed. The question was not, well, we don't know. It was more, the answer was more, we will do it as much as you want. And this is our role, this is our function, and we will make sure that people have the best care possible. And I think over the last 6 years, we've worked tremendously close with the state and to develop that program. It was not perfect. I think the new law that just came on will give better access to the patient and so on. But I think with Stacy Seifert, who has a tremendous relationship with the people at the state level, I think we were able really to do the best with the resources that the state had to really open up care for all the citizens of the state.
So what have been the greatest challenges for you in this position? And what are the things you feel so great that you've accomplished so far? I know there's so many.
The thing is, I don't look at it as challenges. Then people say, well, you had a lot of challenges. I don't look at it as challenges. I look at it that we need to do this. We really need to do the best thing we can do for the people of Iowa. Then I think the first project or dream I had when I was a dean, was really to continue to develop the research. You see, if we have facility, we can recruit the great people. And if we had recruit great people, we will have a superb university. Then we really, with David Scourton and Gary Fettke, when Gary was the interim president, then we started to plan for the Papa John Biomedical Discovery Building. And we plan in a way that is different than the other building. It's a college. Usually the buildings are collegial building and so on. That building is really a research building that is a university building that will regroup investigators, scientists from different colleges. What I wanted is really to break these boundaries that exist in colleges and make sure that people will work together. And I think we achieved that. And I think Papa John also and Mary, when they came with the gift, realized rapidly that this was a lot more than just a building for a college. But that was really a resource for the university to really bring the best scientists in this country here and really to solve very, very difficult problems. Then that was probably, I never saw that as a challenge. I saw that we need to do this. And we just did it.
It's that optimism that you have.
And I think, and these things, you don't do this together. There's a lot of people involved. I mean, clearly, Dave Scourton, Gary Fettke, and many others. Paul Rotman, when he was dean, and now Deb Schwinn, Mike Welsh, who was the director of the Papa John Institute. All of these people and many others have contributed and continue to contribute of making this a real reality.
It takes a village, doesn't it? It takes a village, and you've got a great team.
Absolutely.
What about, how have you felt about the River Landing opening? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, River Landing was an interesting project. We have about close to 1 million visits a year at the university, in a place where we have just one road and very difficult of access and parking. We were thinking at the time to really build a children's hospital. And I said, we have to move a large number of visits outside. And the idea was really to find a place where to put a clinic and do that. We look at multiple sites around, and one morning Ken Fisher came and told me, Jean, I think just next to the Marriott, we should put a clinic there. I said, this is not what I was really, and that's really not what I was envisioning. Then he started to talk to me, and this thing came really real. I say, it would be superb to have, well, not just one clinic, but maybe multiple in an area where people can go shop, where there are hotels because people come out of town, there are restaurants, and so on. And then we talked with the city of Coralville, and that was the first building that was put there. And I think it was the right decision. People like Gordon Williams, who came from Duke, and he lived in Iowa City, but Gordon was working at Duke's for years, came and helped us tremendously in actualizing the building and making what it is, and to really a new approach to the design of the rooms and the way that patients are welcome and patients move across the building and so on and so forth. And I think we have a great facility, and I hope we will be able to have a second one and a third one in the future, because I think we will see a lot more patient being taken care outside of the university, outside of the hospital, and in the community.
Well, you've got the sports center,
You're right.
orthopedic, and then you've got, so you are starting to push out throughout our community.
And we have to do that. I think it's easier of access. The people don't want to be encumbered with parkings and walking and so on and so forth. And I think we're achieving that.
So what's on your goal? What's next on your plate?
Well, we have to finish the Children's Hospital first.
All right, here we are, 2013, and when do you propose it to be done?
Well, the Children's Hospital will be completed in 16. And the reason, there is a rationale why do we do that. And there are maybe 2 or 3 main reasons for this. First of all, we have a hospital where we have many rooms that are multiple bed. We don't have many private rooms. We have over 65% of our rooms are non-private room. The second, the hospital is a little noisy in many respects. Third, the technology has changed and we need to modify a lot of the floors. And fourth, many of the children's services are spread across the whole physical plan. We have some children floor in Carver, some in Carlton, and some in Papa John. Then we needed to bring this together. And then we decided really to go ahead and build a children's hospital. And maybe it's easier for a pediatrician to lead that.
Yes,
but
right.
I think anybody else will have done the same thing because it was needed. And it was needed for us here, for the facility, but it was also needed really for the people of Iowa.
It's the only one in the state?
Well,
Will it be
this is the only one with offering freestanding and offering all specialties that of pediatric and surgery. Then I think we are a real resource for the state, and we want to continue to do that. And to be a resource for the state, you need to be able to renew people, to recruit new people. And if you do have these type of facility where they can really bring new knowledge, new technology, they will come. And I think that's what is happening.
How do you sell Iowa and Iowa City at the university? You know, we're a small community, to get some great top researchers to come here.
I think it's easy.
I
can tell you. I think
I happen to love Iowa City.
I think it's easy. I think people, when they do come, realize first of all how good, how excellent is this university, how excellent is the College of Medicine. And the facility are just superb in many respects. And I think we owe a lot to John Carlton over the years, who has really built what we have now. And it's easy for me, I'm just following his trail, and I think we go that way. But when you bring people here, they realize how superb is the facility, and also how good are the people. And this is a very different conversation at the time. It's like if you were recruited on either coast. The second thing is the fact that the community is not large, not too large. I think people who come with family realize also this is probably the type of life that they want their children to have. And this type of life, you don't get it everywhere. And third, most important than anything else, the people of Iowa. And the people of Iowa are nice, they are good, they are true. And I think it's fun to work for people like this.
Well, speaking of families, I want to talk about your family. There's a story about how you met your wife, Renee, because she was in a girls' school and you were in a boys' school. How did you two meet?
You know too much.
I know, sorry. How did you meet?
Since you know the story, I have to tell you.
Okay.
Yes, I was in a college that was just boys, and she was in a college that was just girls, and we needed to have a Christmas party, and my sister was in Renée's class, and Renée's was president of her class, and I was president of my class. Then we just met and decided to do a party and Christmas together. And after that, we met a few other times, and then we decided to form a youth group, and we met at that youth group, and it started that way. And
the rest, they say, is history.
You're right.
And you have 3 children. Tell me where they are and what they're doing, and 8 grandchildren.
Yes, Marie-Josée is the oldest. She is a nurse, but now she, with her husband, they have an insurance title company, and they live in Wisconsin, and they have 3 boys. Martin is the second, and he is an assistant teacher in town. And Martin had, as you know, a terrible head injury from a car accident when he was young, but did finish college. And now he has 2 kids, two little boys, and he lives in town here. And Caroline lives in Minneapolis, has 3 little girls. She is a psychologist, and her husband is an engineer. And then we're quite blessed to have all these children and these grandchildren.
So you get together, I know you love spending time with your children and grandchildren.
We get together quite often.
Quite a bit?
Yes,
you go to
quite a
Wisconsin, or did they come
bit.
here?
They come here. They come here, and the house is big enough to accommodate all of them. And, and we have no plan to reduce the size of the house because we love to have them around.
Sure.
And the grandchildren, many of the boys spend the summer with us. They come to camps in town, and
you're the camp, the Robillard camp.
We are the camp, and
I mean, they attend camps
here.
here.
They attend camps here, sport camp or others, and they spend quite a bit of time with us during the summer.
So how many grandsons? You
5.
Have 5
and 3 granddaughters.
And 3 granddaughters. And another part of in your yard, I know, are some beehives. I think a lot of people might not know that you're an amateur beekeeper. So how did this start?
And that's by accident.
Is it by accident?
Yes.
Would you have some bees in the house? Or
No.
or
I would probably not be a beekeeper if I had bee in my house. That's not the way to keep bee.
Okay. See, what do I know about bees?
Marie-Josée, the oldest daughter, had started to have bee, and she asked me one year, I said, why you don't put 2 hives in the backyard? And we started to do that, and it became quite interesting. They are a nice creature in many respects that you can learn a lot just by looking at them and seeing what they do, and this is a little society and how they survive and so on and so forth. And we started to do that. Now we have 4 hives. We had 6 last summer, but we'll reduce to 4 this year. And it's a nice hobby, doesn't take too much time. Bee take care of themselves, and it's just perfect for me.
So, and I've tasted the honey, which is just delicious. So who harvests it? And
we do harvest that.
You have these the little honey jars?
Yes, we do harvest the honey, and we do that with the grandchildren usually in the fall and around September. And it's bring them a chance also to come and do things with us and so on. And
besides bees, and I know how incredibly busy you are, what do you do to relax, or what do you to take a deep breath and get away from it all?
Well, you know, I like what I'm doing.
Oh.
It's almost a job. It's almost not a job, honestly.
Really?
Then
That's great.
The other thing is we did a lot of sailing when the kids were younger. We spend quite a bit of time with them with the grandchildren during the summer. We go to a resort in Minnesota during the summer with them. And people say it's not much relaxing with 8 grandchildren for that, but it's fun to be there. And and we travel a little bit, René and I, but not much. I mean, we do that around the business trip and so on and so forth.
So I love it that you find it relaxing and to be with your children and grandchildren, which is just so wonderful for them, and you're passing on what you got to be with your grandparents and they influenced you, and I know you're passing that on to your grandchildren. And
I hope I'm passing the good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for being a guest on One of a Kind. This was really lots of fun.
Thank you.
My guest on One of a Kind has been Dr. Jean Robillard, the very, very successful Vice President of Medical Affairs at the University of Iowa. Dr. Robillard is an educator, researcher, pediatric nephrologist, healthcare leader, husband, father, and grandfather. Words used to describe my guest are visionary, insightful, a leader, optimistic, determined, and a family man. Dr. Jean Robillard is one of a kind.